Hey, I'm Professor Danielle Citron. I am the inaugural director of the LawTech Center at the law school, and it's a thrill to have you here. I so hope I can convince you all to come to the law school. Having met a lot of you, know that you have interesting careers, things that you're doing, really interesting backgrounds. So I hope you will be joining me and the rest of our amazing faculty. So what I thought I'd do is just begin a little bit by, why study and think about law and technology as an area, as a discipline, a way of thinking. And then some of the courses that we have that we consider kind of exploring law and technology and some of the faculty. And then what is this LawTech Center? And what, at least as the inaugural director, what I have been trying to accomplish in my 2 years as the inaugural director. So we know that, of course, and you'll see this when you come and study with us, your first year classes will make so clear to you that law develops and is informed by societal expectations, social norms, and that they are in conversation with each other, right? Law is our educator, it's our teacher, but it learns a whole lot from and has pressure from, of course, what we want, what we expect and what we deserve, right, our social norms. And it's an iterative dance, right, law and social norms. And part of that dance, right, part of that, how law is shaped by how we think, and how we think shapes, of course, and puts pressure on law, is the emerging technologies. That is what you'll see in your first year classes is that so much of law's development has everything to do with changing not only the economy, like changing economics and the hydraulics of pressure of economic change, but technologies are behind that change. And that it once was that technologies moved at least kind of slowly. The printing press, enormous change in society, right? But it didn't change and iterate in ways that were hard to keep up with, bewilderingly so, right? We had the car, right, emerges on the scene in the mid to late 1800s. The telephone, right, the telegraph. But the technologies themselves don't change seismically and morph. Their dangers become clear. Law catches up to those dangers, right? We used to not have seat belts. And thanks to Ralph Nader and Nader's Raiders, we have seat belts now, right? But what we find with information technologies and digital technologies is that the industry acts as if they don't have to worry about harm. Everything's a beta test. We just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what hits. And I'm in that land of to see what hits is all the harm, right? Like that often, and I'll explain why, but these technologies they don't have to internalize the cost that they externalize thanks to law. We often just throw a lot of stuff against the wall, and then we realize there's a whole lot of individual, group, and societal harm. And so law and technology in particular, in this moment, in the work that I do, especially on privacy, on free speech and civil rights, is to explore and to have law and press law to catch up to all of this harm, all this wrongful behavior that right now in this moment and for the last 25 years, Congress has chosen to immunize these companies from responsibility, especially the content platforms under Section 230 of the Decency Act. Since 1996, we've chosen to treat them that they're so special, that what happens online should be treated differently than what happens offline. That's a choice that we've made, and so we have a whole lot of harm. Those spaghettis against the wall is a whole lot of harm to people, groups, and society. And at the same time, we've also chosen not to regulate largely our surveillance economy. So we collect, we exploit, we use, we share, we sell data, hand over fist. We have reservoirs of databases of information, data sets, profiles that are largely unregulated. And we've seen some interesting moves at the state level. We've seen some interesting moves, we've seen some efforts on the Hill that I've been working on, and lots of interesting move from state attorney generals and the Federal Trade Commission, but none of it comprehensive. It's kind of like all the edges. And so what I focus on in my work is on the privacy, speech, and civil rights story that law and technology, law definitely hasn't caught up. Often law catches up by the brute force of harm that law, whether it's tort law, it's civil rights law, it's all different ways in which antitrust law develops and changes. Law almost has to. People bring lawsuits. State AGs bring causes of action, right? They bring unfair and deceptive practice claims. But we're in this moment in which, especially when it comes to the content layer, and we're talking about online conduct, because Congress has chosen to immunize these companies. So much of the work has to be I do a lot of work with companies because we're self-regulation land. And so if I'm going to have an impact, I'm going to work with, TikTok, and I used to work with Twitter, but they dissolved our Trust and Safety Council. We're gone. Thank you. Bye. Okay. But working with Spotify and Bumble, like working on the self-regulatory efforts is because that's all we got. I'm willing to show up and help and consult, right? So law and technology, what we're studying, then that goes to the question of like, hey, what is that we're studying? There's so many different areas of law that intersect with the bewildering change that network technologies have brought to us, right? And that includes civil rights and discrimination theory. So Deborah Hellman and Megan Stevenson and others think about all the ways that algorithms or algorithmic, whether it's machine learning, deep learning models, like all the ways that artificial intelligence, which is a buzzword just basically for different machine learning processes, but all the ways that algorithmic technologies impact our lives. And that's our civil rights, that's our administrative law. I do a lot of work on administrative law and automated systems. It's the criminal law, that's Megan Stevenson, right? There are ways in which AI has this impact on all these different areas of law: discrimination theory, civil rights, and the criminal law. National security. Right, big area where, of course, digital technologies, law and technology are at the heart of decisions, like whether it's, right now we're thinking about banning TikTok in the United States under, CFIUS, the Treasury Department's arm, about the fact that the Chinese government can easily just demand and say, for national security reasons, we need all the data. Will that happen? As the Trump administration, it was their beginning of that conversation. The Biden administration is also continuing that path. Will we see a reconciliation or some compromise? I think it's likely, but I don't know, right? But the national security story is what's driving that conversation, right? It is about national security, this pressure on TikTok to sell its assets, much as Grindr had to sell its assets. It was owned by the Chinese companies and then sold much of its assets to other companies that now, of course, have Chinese influence. So we should really be mindful of what we wish for as we demand sales of companies. But there are courses that we have at the law school on cybersecurity. So Kristen Eichenseer teaches a brilliant course on cybersecurity. She had worked at the State Department. We've got Ashley Deeks, who just came out of the Biden administration, who is a national security guru, teaches international law. So we have the law and tech story is also a national security story, right? Privacy, that's my area of expertise. And so, the way in which law and technology changes is reflected in, I teach every iteration of privacy that I can teach. I teach privacy, a privacy law and theory seminar. I'm going to teach a privacy tort seminar, hopefully in the fall. I teach a course on free speech in the digital age. So you have, then that segues nicely into like all of our free speech scholars who inevitably interact with law and technology. One of the wonderful reasons why I came here is because my teachers in the First Amendment and free speech norms are here. Fred Schauer, Leslie Kendrick, there's no one better to learn from as we think about the First Amendment. So a lot of us are thinking about law and technology kind of in the free speech and civil rights and civil liberties space. So, and I'm sure I'm leaving things out, of course, intellectual property inevitably, right, has everything to do with data, its use of data, the ability to be exclusive about that data and sell that data and make a profit off of it, copyright, patents, right, trademark, trade secrets. We do have the country's most esteemed trade secret scholar, Elizabeth Rowe, and I help recruit her, so I would feel like, yes. She and I are going to write an article together this summer called Intimate Secrets, how we might think about trade secrets and privacy law coming together. So we have so many exciting courses and scholars here to learn from kind of in this area. And then that, of course, leads me to the question of what is this LawTech Center and what are we trying to do with it? So when I came to the law school in December of 2020, I spent most of my career at the University of Maryland that's where I grew up, for 16 years, and then was at BU for literally a hot second, like a year and a half. And I had been talking to UVA for about 4 years. Some of my favorite people, Debbie Hellman and I were together at University of Maryland. I couldn't come because my spouse needed a major airport nearby. This is pre-COVID. And then COVID happens. And the blessing, I mean, it's horrible, but there was a silver lining for me, which is that my spouse could realize that all of their offices, Silicon Valley, Baltimore, DC, like they were going to be by Zoom no matter what in that era. And so I was able to say to Debbie and Risa and Leslie, so to our dean, Professor Kendrick, Professor Hellman, like, I think I can come. And so I had this like amazing luck, the place I always wanted to be with my favorite scholars, that I could come join you all. And part of what our dean, who is incredible, I have met many deans, trust me, she's the greatest dean of all times, said to me like, hey, part of coming, like, would you be interested in starting this Law and Tech Center? And you do what you want with it. Our centers are really loosely devised. It's kind of whatever you want to do with it. And some people have centers and they like principally have a conference where they bring scholars together and that's what their principal job is. And I was like, you know what? I have always been so deeply involved with my students wherever I've taught. And I want the LawTech Center to be about the students. I want it to be about teaching the students and providing opportunities for learning about law and technology with a principal focus, because of me, like my work is on privacy, automated systems, free speech and platforms. And so what I did was create a program of LawTech Fellows, right, where the goal is for my students and I to figure out speakers. We have webinars, people come speak to our students so we can teach you in vast and sundry ways about all careers, not only in privacy. So John Woods, we have an amazing alum who has really helped us, wants to be involved. And so we did a panel last year on all the careers in privacy law together. We have had so many cool scholars come, both by webinar, but also in person. We had Chris Gilliard, who is just like extraordinary thinking about race and technology. He came and did a seminar by webinar on luxury surveillance. We had, and we'll have, we've had so many cool speakers come to the law school, but looking forward to April, we have a number of speakers. We've got Pete Strzok coming to talk to us about counterintelligence. We have Diane Rosenfeld, her new book on the bonobos and thinking about sexual and gender violence. We've got, oh my God, I'm probably leaving out so many cool things, but we have lots of speakers on the horizon. Mutali Nukande came and talked to us about AI for the people. So a lot of what we do is my students, my fellows will say to me, I have this cool idea. What do you think of having an event? And then we have the event. And I'm the one who's always like, we have money, let's pay for the food. Like that, let's do that, So when Gabriel Josephs, one of my LawTech fellows, like it was for Black History Month, said, and he's one of the heads of BALSA, said, like, who are the speakers you would want? And let's do events together. So together we brought Mutali Nukande to come in to talk about her work with industry to ensure that who's at the table designing technologies are people from marginalized backgrounds. Because so far, right now, it's men and Asian men in their white men and Asian men in their 20s, building the technologies without any conception of the harm, because they're just not that they're bad people, they just don't see it, right? They're cognitive limits for all of us. So Mutali works with companies on changing that. So she came last month. So it's really like my students coming to me with cool ideas. I, of course, have an agenda. So I bring my people I care about or people I want to hear from to come talk. So it's really just opportunities to bring speakers and then, of course, to research, and research for me and research for people in the law and tech sphere. And if you look at our website, there are so many of our faculty who work on these issues. And so Elizabeth Rowe was saying at the beginning of the year, I need research assistants. I'm new to the school. Help me. And so I sent an email out to our law tech fellows, and there was a rush for applications for Professor Rowe. Same with Professor Craig Conniff. He was looking for fellows, and so looking for research assistants. You know, he writes about law and sexuality and health privacy. He's amazing. So we got some great RAs for him. You know, you have to apply, but it's another opportunity for me to funnel my students to really interesting professors and research opportunities. So that's the kind of premise of the LawTech Center. Now, I'm just the inaugural person, director. I won't always be. There will be other people who will be the director. I hope that they continue the fellows program. It's unusual for the law school. It's been a great thing. We have now alum who are now working, because I guess now I've been here long enough to see people graduate and go on. So I'm hoping that it continues. It's been a great thing, I think, for me and for the students and for faculty. So now the floor is open to us with questions.